She here or no?
Maybe that's not a good idea.
Why did you get so excited for this? I thought we were going to get to hear Christmas sing. Howard's I think it's incredible. Should I never visit this again now? Yeah, I'll teach her when you come in here. Does he have a standing one? Yes.
I didn't read it. I got English. Okay, we're good, right? Maybe. Virtual, we're good? We're good. Please take your seats. Is this okay? In terms of- Come on in and take your seats. We're going to get started. I'd like to welcome everybody and convene the meeting. I don't think Jeremy Story is here, is he? No? I'd like to call up Chris Bird to give the invocation.
Bow with me, please. Father in heaven, we love you and we just thank you for giving us this time, this occasion, that you brought us together safely. You brought us together with a purpose. Our purpose this evening, amongst others, is to seek truth. And we just ask your favor in our efforts to do that. We also ask for all of your favor in all things that we do. Father, just be with us as we interact with each other. Give us humility and at the same time righteous boldness. We just ask your blessings on this evening in Jesus' name. Amen.
I'd like to call Sarah Fields to lead us in the national anthem. The flags are we're up there.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we held at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight, oh, the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave? Oh, the land of the free and the home of the
Thank you. That was great. I'd like to call upon Donnie Weisenbaker to lead us in the pledge to the United States flag.
Repeat after me, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And I have asked Rhonda Lacey for a reunion tour performance of Texas, Our Texas.
Texas, our Texas, all hail the mighty state. Texas, our Texas, so wonderful, so great. Boldest and grandest, withstanding every test. Oh, empire wide and glorious, you stand supremely blessed. God bless you, Texas, and keep you brave and strong, that you may grow in power and worth throughout the ages long. God bless you, Texas, and keep you brave and strong, that you may grow in power and worth throughout the ages long.
Thank you so much. And now we call upon Ann Gebhardt to lead us in the pledge to the Texas flag.
Please join me in the pledge to our great state of Texas. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
I appoint Carmen Calderon, Galen Devine, and Gwen Withrow to serve on the proxy committee, with Galen Devine serving as chairman of the committee.
Oh, yeah.
And call upon Secretary Virgil Cruz for the roll call.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I wanted to point out that Sarah Fields we got her at the last second, right before the meeting, and she did such an amazing job. So, all right. Chairman Matt Rinaldi.
Here.
Vice Chair Dr. Dana Myers. Secretary Virgil Cruz, I'm here. Treasurer Fred Tate.
Here.
General Counsel Rachel Hooper. Here. Assistant General Counsel Emily Cook. Parliamentarian Stephen Bolin.
Here.
Sergeant at Arms Mike McCloskey.
Here.
Chaplain Jeremy Story. Finance Chair Senator Mays Middleton. National Committeeman Dr. Robin Armstrong. National Committeewoman Tony Ann DeShiel. From Senate District 1, Kristen Bentley.
Here.
Donnie Weisenbaker.
Here.
Jerry Fisher.
Here.
Bruce Bishop.
Here.
Janice Holt.
Here.
You made it. David Cubby.
Here. Sort
By
of.
proxy, Janice Holt.
Kind of, sort of.
Gwen Withrow.
I am here.
Eric Smith, proxy for Dale Inman.
Here.
Susan Lucas.
Here.
Edward Yeomans, proxy for Bill Fairbrother. Did I say your name correct? Don McDonald. Scott Bowen. Teresa Thomas for Deborah Fight. Tom Novus. Maggie Witt.
Here.
Jim Pickle.
Here.
Ann Gephardt.
Here.
Dan Tully.
Here.
Susan Wright.
Here.
Matt Tiskus.
Here by proxy.
Susan Wright. Galen Devine.
Here.
Ken Moore.
Here.
Jill Glover.
Here.
David Wiley.
Here.
Dr. Melinda Morris.
Here.
Dale Gibble.
Here.
Jan Duncan.
Here.
Fernando Trevino Jr.
Here by proxy.
Gail Stannard.
Here.
Yolanda Garcia.
Here.
Susan Fountain. Represented by Matt Patrick. Matt, are you here? Okay, when Matt gets here, he needs to check in for both of them. Becky Green. Roman Klein. Cheryl Thompson Draper, represented by Susan Patrick. Paul Yemerick, representing Howard Barker.
Here.
Kelly Perry.
Here.
Fernando Garcia.
Here.
Grace Jones.
Here.
Chuck Burnett.
Here.
Tony Trevino.
Here.
Mike Monreal.
Here.
Debbie Duke. Is that here? Yeah. John Carr.
Here.
Elaine Cook. Ed Zenner. Mary Jane Avery.
Here.
Andy Eller.
Here.
Naomi Narvaez.
Present.
Chris Bird.
Present.
Karen Marshall.
Present.
Kiko Canseco.
Present by proxy.
Morgan Graham.
Here.
Carmen Calderon.
Here.
Linda Hope.
Here.
Steve Evans.
Here.
Robin Cooper.
Here.
Adolfo Theus.
Here.
Rachel Horton.
Present.
Britton Brooks by Rachel Horton.
Awesome.
Tisha Crow.
Here.
Thomas Warren.
Here.
You've got a quorum. Oh, so you're here for two.
Call upon, Jen, do you have any comments, review of packets? We'll move through that. Call upon Virgil Cruz to report the findings of the proxy committee.
Or Galen can do it. She's prepared.
Galen can do it.
So we have 12 proxies. Anything else?
Great job. A quorum being determined, I call the meeting to order. The first item on the agenda is the reading and approval of the minutes. If there's no objection, we will dispense with reading of the minutes from the fourth quarter 22 SREC meeting. Hearing no objections, if there are no objections, we'll approve the minutes. Hearing none, the minutes stand approved as prepared. We'll start our meeting with the reports of our officers. First, I call upon Fred Tate to provide the report of the treasurer.
Are you in the dock here?
Should be.
Get your phone first, Mark?
There it is.
Go. Thank you for being prepared.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a quick primer. Just to remember, I report month-end close numbers. The idea is to keep it static. Because we're on March 3rd, I do not have firm February numbers for you, so most of what I'm going to tell you today is through the end of January, although I do have a tentative cash balance in here for February. The close of the books happens next week. It takes that long to settle all credit cards, just so everybody knows. Because I try to keep this as consistent as possible when we look back. You go to things like this. This is our filing schedule for this year. I'm kind of excited about it. If you recall the last slide for last year, we had a lot more reports to file. So we are already into through February, done our federal reports, the state reports are done. Since the party is doing more activities in the local elections, it's likely we're going to have some filings to do in April to make sure we stay compliant with the TEC. It just means a couple extra files and with shorter reports, but it's nothing that we can't handle. But it's kind of nice. If you recall last year's schedule, we had reports up and down the list on all three columns. So if you flip to the next slide. This is something I put in. I find it interesting so we can see how our competition is doing. And so since we all have the same structure as the Democrats, we can see our size compared to theirs. It is kind of interesting to note with the Republican Party, we continue to carry no debt, and the Democrats are carrying some level of debt. In particular, where we are a lot higher is in the state account, right? And as you guys know, we have a federal contribution limit of $10,000, and so a lot of our large donors have to go into the state account, and then the money gets transferred around to reimburse expenses over time. So that's a pretty good view to see how big we are compared to the Democrat Party. And if you could flip to the next page. This was, if you recall in my prior reports, I told you about a lot of activity, making sure I maximize the amount of money in the federal account. I'm glad I did, because the party runs the mail program, and I think the chairman's going to talk about this in his report. That mail program, because it included federal candidates, we paid for it out of the federal account, yet the reimbursement of the contributions that came into the party, the contributions came in the party mostly went in the state account. We're big enough to be able to accommodate that and do this. And so this is the report we submitted in February for the close of January, where the party is gaining ground and the federal account is still carrying no debt. So we flip on through. This is the operational fundraising through the end of 2002. We've talked about trying to change the way we report this, and I've got some other reports I'm trying to develop. The part that I want to remind everybody is the operational budget that was agreed by the officials committee covers a very small portion of what the party does. I'll show you that later in the report. And so the party's focused on last year was on the large donors and the non-allocated operations, and these were election integrity. But it's going to be included in operations, which is being included in operations in 23. So this year, the chair and the party is going to be working on operational fundraising. And I did want to point out last year that those programs between convention, victory, election integrity raised $4 million for the party. So moving on to expenses. So I'm going to compliment our executive director for running a tight ship and beating expectations when it comes to expenses without reducing services. So moving on, you can see the typical fundraising sources through the operational account. I believe I talked to the executive director. There is some discussion about bringing events back. That line of revenue has just been killing since COVID. So I'd love to see that come back. So moving on, this same slide, I'm going to run through this. What I'm trying to do is show you more about the structure of the party and try to do away with this nebulous operational reporting, which is subject to gamesmanship, which I don't like. If you could scroll up. If you can go to the next slide. Sorry, thank you. There you go. So it's a little small. You'll have to look at it in your packet, but this is the full P&L for the party. This ticks and ties to the audit report. In other words, what we're showing you with that report is the total operation of the party for last year was $13.3 million of top line revenue, right? That operational budget is about $1.4 million, a little more than 10% of the party, right? So what I'm getting at is the party operations are a lot bigger. Love to see more budgeting within those activities, even if a certain activity is the one that's supposed to be profitable, others spend money. I think that better planning can yield a better result. And so if we flip to the next page, we can show you the P&L for the month of January. It's interesting to note, while we talked about the cash balances, I remind you that the primary money is not ours, but we can spend it to actually use the primary. So there's like a once a 2-year event where we can collect a reimbursement. We collected $106,000 in January. That's the reimbursement for the wages and stuff that we put into the primary. Ultimately, when the final primary contest is settled, The remaining funds have to be turned over to the state, which will be about $500,000. So if you could scroll up, we get into the cash report. Every cash balance that the party has since I've become your treasurer, if you can scroll up, we're ending February with what looks to be about $552,839, or if you want the official number, $616 across all the accounts at the month of January. So it is gone down, but I would note that we are basically at the beginning of the 2-year cycle again, right? We're in the legislative session. This is March. We've just started. So. I want to make sure that we're focused on fundraising going forward. In other words, it's time to fill up the bank account again so we can get ready for the next election. All the details about the cash account, the funds are in the report. I don't think there's much I need to go to. Unless there's any questions, I think that concludes my report. Any questions? Thank you.
I call upon Rachel Hooper to present the report of the General Counsel. Do you need us an executive? Is there any objective to going into executive session for hearing the report of the General Counsel? Hearing none, we'll go into executive session. Will the Sergeant at Arms please remove non-voting members from the room?
Yeah.